Alexi Lalas, welcome back to the channel, my friend. It's been a couple months since you've been on. Last time you were on the channel, it was when we had Tactical Manager on here to debate some MLS and some USMNT. So it's been a while. How have you been, my friend?
I'm good. Is Tack in the middle of this tournament down there? I feel like he's got a sponsored team. That's the time I checked. So have they won anything? Are they doing okay? What's happening?
Well, it's been hard for me to check the scores. I think last I checked, they'd lost their first game. They won their second game. So I'm not really sure where they're positioned at right now. I don't know if they made out of the group stage or not, but that's still cool as hell to be at the TST.
No, it's a fun tournament. I've actually been watching some of the games. My good friend and colleague Carly Lloyd and company has a team in there. So I've watched this over the last couple of years, and I think they've done a really, really good job. So, congratulations and good luck to Tax team. By the time you're listening or watching this, we'll see if they're still in the tournament. But either way, it's a fun little thing. And look, we talk about soccer, right? Men's, women's, co-ed, naked, it doesn't matter. As long as people are kicking a soccer ball in the United States, I think we're here for it. And we live in interesting times, my friend, relative to people kicking a ball. There's a lot of it going on this summer and obviously into the next summer with the World Cup coming, barreling down the pike.
Yes, exactly. And, honestly, I thought after last summer, I kind of was a little bit more reserved about this summer, not to get my hopes up, because last summer was a very big disappointment for the USMNT, which is what we'll be talking about first. And then also, too, we hired Pochettino, so that kind of reignited the excitement a little bit. But then, Alexi, it seems like, I know you talked a little bit about this on the State of the Union, but there's a lot of players who just don't really seem, now some of them have duties to the Club World Cup, but some of them seem disinterested in playing in the Gold Cup for the USMNT. What are your thoughts about that real quick, about some players choosing not to play? Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're less than 200 subscribers away from 7,000, and our goal is to hit 7K by the Club World Cup. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of my videos. Now, back to the video.
Yeah, I think, as we get ready for this Gold Cup, which kicks off in a week from when we're recording here today, I think that there is a palpable type of angst and concern, and maybe even the worst part is that there's an apathy that has crept in towards this team. And some of it is understandable given the recent failures. I want to be fair to the players and the entire group of players. Obviously, some of them are not there because of the Club World Cup. Some of them are not there because of injury. Some of them there because of choice. I think the problem in general is because there is that apathy out there relative to this team, I worry that this is going to be a missed opportunity for this team. And I say this team collectively as a brand, I guess, to kind of reignite some excitement, some curiosity, and ultimately, let's be honest, just some belief in this team. And I never thought that we would be in the summer of 2025 in this position relative to our team and the 2026 World Cup. But this is where we find ourselves. So the other part of it is maybe the glass half full, is that we get to see this new group come together. And we've seen, I guess, you could call it B or C teams in Gold Cups before, and we've seen them win. And I don't want to lower expectations. I actually want to kind of put the onus and maybe the burden on this group to say, hey, here's your opportunity. Individually, Pochettino has made it very clear he doesn't care where you play. And I think he's also made it very clear that it's kind of an open slate here. So, hey, stake your claim. And who knows, maybe you star this summer and we see you starring next summer in the World Cup. And then as a group, if this is a successful summer, obviously it relates to results, but ultimately, if we come out of it with a newfound respect and excitement and energy for this team going forward the next year, I think that will be viewed as a success. It's not easy to do, but I think that they can do it. And you know what? When we see a U.S. men's national team doing things that get us excited, and some of it's just literally working hard, and what it ultimately generates is a pride. And I think they can renew and restore some pride in this team, given some of the questionable decisions relative. And I just can't believe we're at a time where we're questioning whether players actually care to represent a team. I don't like to grumpy old man it, but I cannot relate at all to not going anywhere at any time in any type of situation to represent my country for the national team. I'm 55 years old, and if Pochettino turned around and said, hey, you got 20 minutes in you, I would run right down from the stands and go on that field or go anywhere in order to represent my country.
Well, and that's a great point. And it kind of, we've talked about this before. It's like the entitlement, right? Like them playing for us is doing us a favor, not an honor to be playing for the red, white, and blue. That's what it feels like. And that poses another question. I was talking to a buddy this weekend or earlier this week about this. I wonder if one of the big issues with the USMNT is that a lot of the players that we have been core players for several years now. And a lot of the other big national, international teams or national teams have new guys coming in every single year, getting, grinding their teeth, trying to push for a spot. But we don't really have that. Like, who is a guy who's really emerged in the last 4 years, 2 years, 1 year? Diego Luna, maybe just because of his effort, but like, who's a guy that's just came up, maybe a younger guy who's fighting for a spot? I mean, we just don't really have many guys like that.
Yeah, and maybe it's not our own fault, but maybe just the reality of the situation. When Greg Berhalter kind of took over, I think he premised everything with, this is a process. Fair enough, coaches say that. But I also think that in practice, he actually showed that this was cultivating a very young group. Obviously, we were the second youngest team at the World Cup. And so by doing that, you're almost locking yourself into seeing this team evolve and ultimately get to the prime of their careers, which many of them will be now. But what you also do is sometimes it puts blinders on. This is the group. This is the chosen group. This is the golden generation. And come hell or high water, we're going to stick with them. And that's a dangerous situation to be. Now, it doesn't mean that there are players that have been neglected or bypassed, but the potential is there for that to happen. And I think because then the success is not there and we see some of these failures, and then you couple it with what we see as not even a desire to represent, and to your point, maybe an entitlement in terms of the way that they act, then we start to grab onto any semblance of somebody that is going to make us feel that way that we want to feel inside. And so then you have your Diego Lunas, obviously your Sebastian Berhalters and the like. But ultimately, it's not all doom and gloom. I do believe that even within a year, as fast as 2026 is going to come, things can change. The sentiment can change. And ultimately, when that whistle blows in the summer of 2026, those, I guess it would be now 26 players that are on a roster, those 26 players, I feel will have been cultivated by Pochettino to best represent this country and to bring back some of that pride. If you listen to Pochettino talk, it's amazing to me how much he talks about wanting the U.S. national team to be a priority. And that was never, at least for me, it was never a question. It should always be a priority. But if that has gone away, that's a problem. But at least he has identified that problem and is trying to get it back.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why it's not total doom and gloom for me, because I would like to see these main guys we talk about all the time get as much repetition, gel, chemistry with the new coaching staff. I mean, we only get one shot at this 2026 with these guys who we've been heralding for years now, right? 2026 is supposed to be the time where it all connects: prime playing age, prime mental, just because you've obviously seen a lot more stuff, been exposed to a lot more stuff. And it is a shame that they don't feel like this is that big of a deal. They're treating this like what, many people call Camp Cupcake. It's, not a big camp. I've heard people call it Camp Gold Cupcake. But hopefully this is an opportunity for some MLS guys, because there's 17 MLS players on this roster. I think something like that, maybe a little more now, because there's been a couple injuries. But these people, these guys have a chance to cement themselves, play hard. We talked about this, your era, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey's era. They all maybe weren't the most talented players, internationally, but they played their ass off every time they put on that red, white, and blue, and they left it all on the pitch. We need more Diego Luna enthusiasm, effort than what we've been seeing the last couple years. So I actually hope that this team can prove a lot of people wrong and really do well in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I mean, Diego Luna, I think, is a talent, and I think he absolutely deserves to be with this national team. But let's be honest. What resonated from Diego Luna? I mean, literally bleeding for the country. I mean, that moment of him breaking his nose and blood flowing down, because it juxtaposed with some of these concerns that we have when it comes to this team and these players. It just was a breath of fresh air, and it harkened back to things that we associate with not just success, but pride. I keep going back to that. I think the American soccer public, yes, we want to win. And ultimately, I don't think the American soccer public or any of us ultimately care how we win in terms of the tactics and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that even if we don't win, having a feeling and a sense of pride in what you saw and the representation of the country through the sport and through these players, I think that that is important to people. And so when we get those glimpses, we want more of it. And that's to be expected, and I think completely fair to do. So we'll see if more of that can either by new players coming in be brought to bear, or maybe some of these players that have been around every once in a while, and I'll be the first to raise my hand, you need a kick in the ass. Yeah, we have plenty of pats on the back, but you need a kick in the ass, and you need a reminder that yours stinks just like everybody else's, and you are not gifted this simply because you were good at a young age. I mean, for example, Yunus Musa, right? He's going through an interesting time right now because, when he first burst on the scene, he was one of these young teenage guys that we were like, oh my God, because what we do is we extrapolate it out. We all understand that it doesn't always work like that. And so you may have to take some different avenues in order to get to your prime, if you will, not just from an age perspective, but where you're playing at your best. And I think he's someone that's going through a meandering type of process. Who knows where he comes out on the end, but that's part of the growth process. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, again, I get back to when this summer is over, and then when next summer is over, you want to look back and say, that was awesome. I took incredible pride in watching my team play, and what I saw had a positive effect and impact on the game. And I think that's where this responsibility comes in. This is on our watch. And I'm talking about us as Americans. This World Cup is on our watch, and we can't afford to let this get away. We can't afford to have it go poorly on the field or off the field. And so it still requires a lot of work, both on and off the field. But ultimately, if we get this right, it's fundamental. It is legacy type of stuff. I still get people that come up to me, that are, you weren't around, you weren't born, but I still get people that were very young in 1994 and say, that changed everything for me. And I hope many, many years from now, when I'm long gone, there's a generation that says, man, that summer of 2026, it changed everything in terms of the way that I view myself, the way I view my country, the way I view my sport. I was so proud of what I saw on the field. I was so proud of the party that we put on for the world, because this has the potential not just to be the biggest sporting event in the history of mankind, but the biggest event in the history of humankind. I mean, that's pretty awesome, and that's a pretty awesome responsibility. And if we harness it correctly, like I said, that legacy can last for decades and decades.
Yeah, this is the launch pad to 2026. And in 2014, the World Cup in the United States, just the environment, obviously it was in Brazil, but the enthusiasm, it was something I'd never seen before. It was, now 94 was important, and that was like the foundation of really getting soccer rolling in this country. But 2014 was the last time the World Cup took place in the same time zone. And that makes a huge difference, because that's when people are getting off work, or maybe they're able to catch a game more. There's more accessible games. If you're playing in the Middle East, the times are all messed up. You got to get super early in the morning. Most people aren't going to be as excited to wake up at like 8 in the morning as they would to watch it at 3, 4, 7 o'clock at night, right? So that, I think, is also something you have to factor. But as far as the Gold Cup, I hope that these guys that are going to be participating really make the most of this. I have a hot take.
Ooh,
I think
okay.
Diego Luna is going to be a starter in 2026.
Ooh, wow. I like that. I like that.
Just because, for example, Malik Tillman is probably more talented than Diego Luna. And he is the Eredivisie player of the year, I think. I think that's what he won. Maybe he's just the PSV player of the year. But who cares if he does nothing for the red, white, and blue? Diego Luna has made more of an impact wearing the badge than Malik Tillman ever has. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. I mean, we do this all the time, right? We watch our Americans that are playing either domestically here or around the world, and then we say, okay, well, that person's playing really, really well. And then we, like I said, we extrapolate it out. Okay, so this is what they're going to do. It's sometimes it's apples and oranges. The environment that you come into is very, very different. And this is why I get back to Pochettino, and any national team for that matter, is not the best players. It's the best collection of players. And I know years ago when Landon Donovan was left off the roster, and we can go back and debate whether that was right, whether that was wrong, and stuff like that. But what I think is undeniable is a coach has to recognize that no matter how much money you make, how many goals you've scored, and how famous you are, or what you have done before, if you're not part of the best group of players, then that's not going to work. And so going forward, whether it's a Luna with just the grit and the personality that he has, and that can be incredibly exciting and contagious, not just to the players that are around you, but to all of us that are watching. And we want to see people like that. Even, a Brendan Aronson for that matter. I think that Brendan Aronson is limited in terms of what he is as a player. But I love the fact that he goes out there, and I know he's going to leave everything on the field. I love the fact that he has a personality that he just wants to run through a wall. That I can do something with that. I actually think the worst situation is when somebody has talent that goes wasted because that person doesn't want to work or believes that talent is just like a faucet where you can turn it on and off. That is a problem. That's a problem for the player, and ultimately that is a problem for the team.
I couldn't agree more. So hopefully the effort level, the intensity, the heart we see this summer is going to be off the charts. But let's get into the group stage. And I think this is a very favorable group. They should, I think that they should make it out of this group. They first start off playing Trinidad and Tobago, which is obviously a little bit of a PTSD rival, I guess, because of 2017. But I think that this is a statement game. This is the first match. All these guys are out. I think that they should have no trouble winning that. And I'm not trying to speak arrogantly about it. I mean, these are teams that we should be beating.
Yeah, so as we said before, we've done a lot of Gold Cups, and some Gold Cups where we haven't had everybody that we have wanted, and we've still gone on and done well and won. However, I think there's a unique aspect to this Gold Cup. I can't remember a Gold Cup where there is more debate as to where the U.S. sits in the pecking order. Usually it's one or two, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously the expectation is to get to a final to win the final. I think there's people that argue right now that the U.S. right now would be sitting 3 and maybe even 4, putting Canada ahead of us, Mexico ahead of us, and then even some people would argue Panama ahead of us, given some of the recent results and what's happened. Now, I don't think that plays out in terms of how this tournament goes. But to your point, when it comes to the group where you got Saudi Arabia, Suriname, Trinidad, and Tobago, yes, the U.S. should win. I like the fact that the guest team is actually part of the group stage for the U.S. because we need all the opportunities to have competition that we can have, which is why it makes the friendlies beforehand here in this next week really, really important. Games against Turkey and against Switzerland, two not elite teams, but certainly teams on our level that are going to give us competition. So all of these games matter. I think the U.S. should win their group. I think that they will win the group. And then ultimately it's going to be about when they come up against, some of these teams now, like a Panama that has been a problem recently, or then our old friends Mexico and Canada at this point with what they're doing. But group stage shouldn't be a problem for the U.S. And if they are not vying for the title by the end of this, even with this team, I think it's a failure and I think it's a problem.
By the way, I like how you slipped in the correct pronunciation of Turkey now, or Turkey. I guess was that like a new thing?
Hey, we have been told, and over the last couple of years, it's been made very, very clear to us that and actually the funny thing is that it was done because of Google. Because if you do the Google search for Turkey, obviously from a country perspective and in English, they had a problem because of the actual animal. And so they have changed it. They have rebranded, I guess. And if, look, I will respect the fact that countries change their names, and we have a history of countries changing their names out there. And if that's what they want to be called, that's fine. I mean, we all grew up kind of calling it Turkey, but now it's Turkey, and that's how it's going to be fonted, and that's how we will talk about it.
Yeah, that I remember listening to your episode when you were talking about that, and it caught me off guard a couple months ago. But yeah, I agree. I think no excuses. This has got to be, and I know that that's what you said that you're expecting, or what should be the expectations. But what is your predictions? Do you think we're going to make it to a final?
Yeah, I think we make it to. I think we definitely make it to the final. Now, again, you got to assess this. Well, the moment that we in, which what we've already done. I think that there are still concerns and questions when it comes to goalkeeping, and Zach Steffen can't catch a break in terms of injury. It sucks that he has gotten injured before this camp, because I think he would absolutely have started games, and maybe this was the moment where he, returns in this back and forth between him and Matt Turner, because if people don't remember, Matt Turner came in and took the position from Zach Steffen. So I think there's a concern in goal, and Matt Turner just seems to be, even though he doesn't play from a club perspective, backing into the starting position, because I don't know if a Freeze or who else is there, Chris Brady at this point, are going to do anything. Schulte's hurt. So, there's a goalkeeping situation. I think the center back situation is crucial. So I would love to see a pairing of like Miles Robinson. And I'm still not sold on Chris Richards, but he has done great things from a club perspective. And here's another one that needs to kind of translate and step up when it comes to the national team. So I'd like to see a consistent back four, although Walker Zimmerman's back in the mix now, and obviously Tim Ream there. The injury, I guess it's an injury or maybe a continued injury when it comes to Serginho Dest on that right-hand side, is going to open up an opportunity for someone else. But, it is concerning that he came in, he had been playing, he was shown in training, and then obviously they did some sort of physical assessment that said, hey, you're not ready for what we want to do. I like the honesty, but it's, we want to see Serginho Dest back. And then, you mentioned Diego Luna, I think is going to get plenty of opportunity. Johnny's really interesting, because I think when all is said and done, he's going to have something to say in terms of that midfield. And then up top, it's still, a wide open type of field here. And Ajiman coming in and Brian White coming in. So, my country or my kingdom for someone with an American passport that can score goals for us up top.
No, I agree. Another player that I'm excited to see is Sebastian Berhalter.
Yep.
I think Sebastian Berhalter has been the best USMNT player in MLS this year. I think he's been very, very important to Vancouver's success in 2025.
Yeah, and he's not like a sexy type of player, but I don't think he needs to be for Pochettino and this team. I also think, you were talking about guys that have kind of been there and done that. I think this is a really interesting and important opportunity for someone like Tyler Adams. He's kind of come out of that injury mode, knock on wood. This is obviously not the team that he is used to, but if he can coalesce this team and be the leader that I think he can be, and show individually and then as a team show success, I think it'll be a nice feather in his cap and in his evolution and his growth as a player. So just because they are some of the usual suspects doesn't mean that they can't do better and that we shouldn't expect them to do better.
No, I agree. And, one of the things you've been criticized a lot for, which, obviously, people are always criticizing you. But one of the things you said is, you mentioned a minute ago, is that there's not a Sherlock striker up top. Like, we don't know if it's Ballo, if it's Pepe, or who it's going to be. And that's a shame, because I don't think anyone should just be handed the keys to the castle just because of who they're playing for. And it feels like that's what a lot of USMNT fans are expecting, or that's what they want. Just pencil or pin Ballo up top. He's the starter, no matter what. He's the guy. And I just think that that's not a good idea, and that it should be a battle. I mean, why couldn't Pepe beat him to be the number one striker?
Yeah. There should be a battle. I think the problem is that nobody's kind of stood up and grabbed it with both hands. And look, Balogun has been given time and time again opportunities. Again, he's hurt, so it's a problem. But if you look back in time, whether it was a Josie Altidore, whether it was a Brian McBride, there was a recognition that, look, there is competition, but ultimately this is our guy. And unless he gets hurt, this is the guy that we're going to look to for better or worse. But again, if you start to compare and contrast with the past, that we don't have someone like that, I think that's concerning. But there is a consistent competition, and who knows, maybe somebody emerges this summer. Maybe Brian White is able to translate his incredible success with Vancouver to the national team on a consistent basis, and he uses this tournament. And next summer, when we're talking, about the World Cup, we're referencing back, hey, he came online last summer, and that's really where he grew and where he really established and told Mauricio Pochettino, I am good enough to play on this team, but more importantly, you have to have me on this team because of what I do.
No, I agree. And to kind of wrap this up, I want to say this, and I'll let you have your closing thoughts.
Sure.
If we win the Gold Cup, I will be so excited, and everybody should be excited, but not for the reason maybe most people would think about just winning the trophy. It's about who we won it with. And I think that's very important because the guys who didn't participate in this tournament, showing that you could win something without them might reignite their fire, might light a fire. I think you mentioned light a fire under their ass.
Yep.
Because they know that, hey, wait a second, they won trophies without me. They needed me. I'm the best player on the team. Yep. No, not really. We didn't need you. This team played better ball collectively together without you, even if you're more talented. So I think hopefully we win. Obviously, we always want to win when the USMNT play, but hopefully they can do some real damage, make some noise. And when these guys, Pulisic, McKinney, Reyna, Ballo, Pepe, Dest, Jedi, whoever it is, comes back into the fold, they're like, oh man, this is not guaranteed. They won without me. I'm not as important as I thought I was.
Exactly. That's the best case scenario for this summer from a competitive standpoint. Look, Christian Pulisic, while I can disagree with his decision this summer, I can recognize and respect that he's a great player and we want him on the team. But just because he's Christian Pulisic doesn't mean that he doesn't need to be motivated. And one thing that might motivate him and others that aren't there is others doing well. We talk about being Wally pipped. And, the reality is that when they are given the platform, I'm talking about this group right now, and they grab it with both hands, and then they get all the flowers, that can be a motivating force. And I hope that it is. And I hope that this team does well for the individuals that we've talked about and for this group, but also, to your point, in a way that it affects the other players that aren't here, so that they know that they're not being looked at as the saviors when they come back in. And they will come back in. But when they come back in, they need to know that their position is not assured, that their attitude and behavior has to mirror some of the stuff that, if it goes well this summer, we have seen. You know what doesn't stink? Just like everybody else. And if that happens, then Pochettino will have kind of played this right and kind of used this summer to motivate the others. Because, we only have so many games before the World Cup. And all these friendlies are going to be important. And you don't want players waltzing back in saying, you see, without us, you can't do the job. What you want is a group like this to say, yeah, we can do the job. We don't need you, but we'll have you. But if you're going to come back in, you're going to come back in on our terms. And you're going to be the best player that you possibly can be as a part of this group going forward. And I think that's what the ideal situation would be from a competitive standpoint. And then the bigger picture is we get excited, and we get excited about this next year. That's just going to come barreling down the pike. It's going to come so quickly next summer. Obviously, we have everybody qualifying. We just had some teams yesterday qualify. So I think we're at 10 of the 48 teams right now, and they're just going to come fast and furious. And we're going to have the draw in December. So everybody's going to get excited. And then we're going to turn the corner on a new year. And then that's 6 months leading up to it. Obviously, we'll have some friendly games, and then before we know it, the 2026 World Cup party and event of the of world history is going to be upon us. And hopefully, we do things great on the field. Hopefully, we have a wonderful time off the field, and we celebrate a sport that you and I both love. But we also celebrate it within a country that we feel is the greatest country in the world, and people never ever forget the World Cup of 2026.
I couldn't have said it better. And, I think that once things start to ramp up, like you said, there's a lot of apathy right now. But I think that's going to be cured very quickly. I think once the draw happens, like you said, and it starts to feel real, that's when people start to get excited again. Before I let you go, where can the people watch your podcast and your shows at? And also, will you be having any coverage? Fox has the Gold Cup this year, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see all of the Gold Cup coverage and all of the different stories as this drama plays out, and the drama on and off the field that is inevitable any type of tournament. So we'll be doing that. My good friends, whether it's Stu Holden or Rob Stone, all the usual suspects will be there. By the way, we're also doing the Women's Euros later on in Fox. So we got a bunch of soccer going on at Fox. You can find me over there on the State of the Union. We will continue to do daily wrap-up shows when it comes to what's happening with the Gold Cup live shows after all of the action that you can find in your feed with my good friend David Mossy. So a lot of stuff is going on. And from a Fox perspective, obviously we're going to use this summer to promote next summer and kind of just have it as this kind of starting point. As we're recording here on Friday, we're coming up to the 1 year out, and it's just amazing that we are here. And like I said before, it's going to come really, really quickly. And so the preparation that we do is vital to having a successful World Cup next summer. And from a Fox perspective, we're going to blow it out and make sure that we tell that story that is that party that we're talking about.
I couldn't agree more. Make sure you check him out on the State of the Union podcast, and also make sure you check him out on Fox. Let up on the guy a little bit. Let him enjoy himself.
It's okay. It's all right. It's not a problem.
I appreciate it, Alexi. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.